My father called it the milk phrase. I didn't understand why until the morning it saved his life. Let me take you back. My name isn't important here, but my father's name was Walter, and for 6 years after my mother passed, he lived alone in a quiet house in a small town in Ohio. He was sharp, independent, the kind of man who fixed his own gutters and refused help carrying groceries. I was the one who checked in every Sunday evening, like clockwork, after my kids went to bed. So when my phone rang on a Tuesday morning instead, I knew something was different before he even said a word. His voice was steady. Too steady. Not the panicked kind of steady, but the careful kind, like a man picking each word with tweezers. We talked about ordinary things. My mother's old garden, his knee, the neighbor's dog. And then right before hanging up, he said something that froze me in place. "Hey, did you ever water that plant I gave you?" It sounds harmless, but I hadn't heard that sentence in almost 30 years. I need to rewind. When I was 17, my father noticed something in me. A certain nervousness after parties, an avoidance of eye contact when he asked if everything was okay. He and my mother had already split by then, and it was just the two of us most nights, eating dinner in a house that felt too big and too quiet sometimes. He wasn't a man of long conversations. He showed love through actions, fixing the car, driving me places, showing up. But one evening, driving home from the hardware store, he said something I never forgot. "If you're ever somewhere and you need me to come get you, no questions asked, just call and ask if I watered the plant." That was it. No explanation, no lecture, just a phrase hidden in plain sight that meant come now. I used it a few times in college, a bad party, a ride I didn't trust. And then, life moved forward. I graduated, got married, had kids, and the phrase faded into memory, forgotten, but never truly gone. Until that Tuesday. The months before that call had felt anything but dangerous to my father. In fact, they felt like a gift. A new neighbor named Gregory had moved in that spring, 2 houses down. Friendly, attentive, the kind of man who remembered small details and asked about them later. He helped my father with yard work, brought over homemade meals. They became porch-sitting friends over the summer. Then in August, Gregory mentioned an investment platform. Casually, almost reluctantly, like he wasn't trying to sell anything. He said a friend had gotten into it and it was paying off. My father brushed it aside until Gregory showed him his own account one evening in October, revealing a number that made my father's stomach twist with quiet, uncomfortable envy. By November, my father had transferred money in. Small amounts turned into real returns almost instantly, which only deepened his trust. Gregory began hinting at bigger opportunities, tiered investments requiring larger deposits for greater rewards. He offered to walk my father through it all in person, at his house one evening. That Sunday, my father had mentioned the platform to me, casually, almost testing the waters. I looked it up while we were on the phone and found nothing solid. I told him to be careful. He said he was just curious. But something about that conversation stuck with me. So over the next 2 days, I dug deeper. What I found chilled me. Scam forums, warnings buried in obscure financial fraud reports. A pattern. Small early gains used to build trust, followed by pressure toward bigger deposits, ending in locked accounts and vanished funds. And an eerily identical story from a man in another state who had lost nearly everything. That's when I called and used the phrase. After hanging up, I called back from a different number, told my father not to react visibly, and explained everything I'd found. I told him Gregory might not just be involved. He might be the one running it. The word target hit different once I said it about my own father. That evening, I made the 4-hour drive without asking permission, showing up with groceries because I knew he hadn't eaten properly. We sat at his kitchen table going through screenshots, forum posts, and fraud complaints until nearly midnight. Pieces started clicking into place for him. The timing of the meals, the phone shone at just the right moment. The conversations that escalated so smoothly he never noticed. The next morning, we walked into the sheriff's office together. The young deputy who took the report recognized the pattern immediately. 2 other counties had filed similar complaints. She warned my father not to approach Gregory or change his behavior in any way. 11 days later, Gregory was arrested. It turned out he'd done this before in 2 other states, always the same slow, patient build of trust before the ask. He'd been renting the house month to month, ready to disappear the moment things got too big. Most of my father's money was recovered. Not all of it, but most. Months later, my father asked me why I'd chosen that phrase all those years ago. I told him I just wanted him to have a way to reach me if he ever needed help without saying it out loud. He looked at me and said quietly, "You made it work both ways." I hadn't thought about it like that before, but he was right. I built it for him. He used it for me. He still takes his morning walks, still volunteers on Thursdays. And every Sunday, right before we hang up, he still asks if I've watered that plant, not because he means it, but because some things become sacred once they've saved your life. If this story moved you, don't scroll past it in silence. Like this video, drop a comment telling us what you'd do in his shoes, subscribe for more real stories like this one, and support the channel Aftermath Tales so we can keep bringing you the stories that matter.